want to give Bigfoot a hug? Look at the camera, look at the camera. Oh, that's good. Thank you very much. Get you some water. We're gonna wait over here so we don't get
Okay. Yeah, he's right here. There's some dirty sodas up there.
Dirty soda?
Dirty soda. Are they mixed up Wait on Miss Gina.
The Luna moth is pretty.
Do you know the price of the sounds and lamps?
This one's 120.
120?
All the frames are in there. That's really the most cost.
It's so cool, man. Like I
Unique.
Say hi. Give her a fist bump. Give her a fist bump.
I tell you what, my wife and I, we as the name suggests, paranormal road tripper. We go on the road a whole lot to, well, we investigate a lot of weird stuff out there, but we go to a lot of events, kind of like this one, conferences and festivals all across this region, really all across the country. And I tell you what, our absolute most favorite one of all is this one, this weekend. We look forward to this event every single year. Just the best managed event. Just, we've fallen in love with that may have been the thing that got them interested in this subject too. But when I was growing up, way back in the 1980s, my parents were school teachers, so they kept our house full of books. And one of them in particular, the Childcraft series, was the one that they really invested in. And of all those Childcraft books, you know, there's one over math and one over science and one over, it's all those boring topics. But there was one that was called Mysteries and Fantasies. And that was the one that was the most interesting to me. And I would thumb through that book all the time. And, you know, you turn to page 1 and there's stories about ghosts. You turn to page 2 and there's some of the UFO history and Roswell and all these different topics. But I tell you what really caught my eye as a young person was the chapter on Bigfoot. Because a lot of those ghost stories and things, the artwork that accompanied those stories, right there in the middle of the page, it was a still shot from the Patterson-Gimlin film. Raise your hand if you're familiar with the Patterson-Gimlin film. Probably a whole lot of us. Yeah, as I said, that got a lot of people, I think, interested in this subject. But right there, accompanying that page on Bigfoot, was the photograph, the famous frame, I think 352, or some reports put it at 354, of the Patterson-Gimlin film. It's the iconic shot of it, sort of arms splayed, and it's kind of looking back over its shoulder at the man that day, Roger Patterson, who was photographing the creature. And looking at that in that book, you know, as a young kid, it captured my imagination. The idea that, you know, this isn't an artist's work, it's not a drawing, it's actual physical proof that there was something out there, something big and hairy out there. And that kind of captured my lifelong interest in the Bigfoot phenomena. In the early 2000s, me and my wife, well, she wasn't my wife at the time, she was my girlfriend, but we started kind of exploring the unknown out there, what I call the unusual, the unexplained, and the otherworldly. My interest in this subject, it kind of started taking us, I kind of got her interested in this as well along the way, and over the years, anytime we hear about a haunted hotspot or a UFO sighting or anything kind of weird, we like to take off and investigate those things for ourselves. Well, over the years, from our home base in South Central Kentucky, the two of us have traveled all over the U.S., to 49 states, and beyond the borders of the country as well, to 30 other countries all across the globe, sort of investigating all those unusual, unexplained, and otherworldly things. Now, when I'm not speaking at events like this or with my family at a booth, I'm a school teacher. I teach English at the high school level, and I tell you what I've learned over the years. When high school students figure out that one of their teachers is into something, and it doesn't have to be something weird per se like I'm interested in, it can be anything, they know that if they can start questioning that teacher about those things in class, that sometimes they can get the teacher off track. You know, your math teacher can quit talking about math and start talking about their hobbies. Well, I started to figure out really quickly that my students knew that I was interested in Bigfoot and ghosts and UFOs because they started asking questions. You know, they would raise their hand and, you know, any good haunted hotspots around their town? You know, these questions that they knew, again, would sidetrack me from English. basically they were trying to get me to say, okay guys, close the textbook, enough Edgar Allan Poe today, or enough Shakespeare today, let's talk about Bigfoot for the rest of class. Well, I started to realize that high schoolers, A, are really talented at this particular thing, but more than that, I figured out that I might be able to trick them back myself, because anytime they started asking me about this, I realized, you know what, I need to start writing these things down. Instead of having me stand up and tell these stories aloud over and over and over again over the years, I thought if I start writing these spooky stories down, things that happened to me, things that happened to my wife, all sorts of paranormal phenomena, not just Bigfoot, but ghosts, and I thought if I write these stories down and try and get them published into a book, then instead of having the kids say, hey, would you tell us this story again? Well, I could say, no, you need to go read this story. I've got copies in the library here at school. You can go down there and check out a book and you can read this stuff. I guess it was my goal was to try to trick them into reading, you know, and it worked. That's a really surprising thing. I don't think the kids, and we'll have to keep it a secret, but over the years, I don't think the kids have really ever figured out that it's my way of tricking them into reading. But over the years, I've written 5 books about all sorts of strange phenomena. I started writing about ghosts back in 2009 and 2016, but my interest in Bigfoot kind of shone through, and in 2020, I wrote a book about Bigfoot. And I'll talk about this a little bit at the end of this presentation as well, because this is the very first event that I've ever had this version of this book. I've been at this event a couple other times, and I've had the first edition of this book, but I'm really excited that today, for the very first time, I have copies of the second edition, and I have really went all out. I worked all summer on this. That's another good thing about teaching is you get the summers off. So I had plenty of time on my hands to kind of go back through and change things, move things around, add all sorts of new maps and graphics, and I'm really proud of the product that I am holding here in my hands. Or the Falk monster. You go down to Florida, they call him the skunk ape. You go to the Pacific Northwest, to Washington State, you start hearing the term mountain devils thrown out. For as many states as there are, there's that many nicknames for Bigfoot, and there's a reason for that. Bigfoot it's a national phenomenon. This creature has been seen all across the U.S., not just in the state of North Carolina where we are today, not just in my area of in Kentucky, but I'm talking all over the U.S. And more than that, it's been seen all throughout history. I can't help but feel like there's a misconception out there sometimes that Bigfoot is a more recent phenomenon. I think sometimes we hear stories like the Patterson-Gimlin film and maybe some of the Ape Canyon incident from 1924, and people start to fall into the idea that maybe this is a relatively new thing, something from just the past 100 years or so, but that's not true at all. Bigfoot sightings have been going on in the U.S. for 1,000 years or more. And today, I just figured, I thought I would take this time, the next 20 or so minutes, to sort of walk through some of those famous Bigfoot cases from all over the United States and beyond, and all through history. Because again, if you trace this subject back that we're all here to celebrate today, the subject of Bigfoot, if you trace it back to its origin, you're going to find Native Americans were the first ones to report sightings of these creatures. In fact, famously, perhaps the first Native American tribe to ever offer evidence of their encounters with these creatures was the Tule River Indian tribe just outside of Bakersfield, California. This is, if you've ever seen the famous rock art that has been discovered in some of the caves in California, in Southern California, the Hairy Man pictograph that is still there today, was first painted nearly 1,000 years ago. The image depicts sort of a very crude drawing of what we would all know as Bigfoot, but the Tule River Native American Reservation, they, to this day, you know, they will swear that their ancestors used to they weren't fearful of this particular creature. They lived in kind of I don't know what the word is I'm looking for here. They lived in unison with this creature. They helped each other. They kind of looked out for each other. The Tule River Indian Reservation, or the Tule River Indian tribe, and the hairy man that they referred to. If you go to the reservation today, you can still see the pictographs there in the cave, very well preserved from 1,000 years later, because they're kind of deep in what is called painted rock. Kind of, they've escaped sort of the I guess, the elements that are out there. They're a little cautious about who they let see those pictographs today. I've actually petitioned them a couple times, but just in recent years, and to be honest, I guess I can't blame them. Just in recent years, I think they're very fearful that once this location is known exactly where it's at in that valley, and if they start letting people go there, that somebody, a knucklehead of some sort, might get back in there and damage the site, which is the last thing they want to see happen. So they're a little hesitant to let people who aren't a member of the tribe get back in there today. But really, if you're tracing the history of Bigfoot, you've got to go all the way back to 1,000 years ago. More recently, but still not quite today, was late 1700s, 1786. In fact, there was a guy named Daniel Boone, who's very famous here in North Carolina, famous in Virginia, very famous in Kentucky, where I'm from, because of his expedition that went through the Cumberland Gap. Well, if you've ever heard the tale of Daniel Boone and the Bigfoot, it's a pretty famous one in this subject as well. Boone, later in life, would travel from bar room to bar room, from fort to fort, telling stories of his encounter with this kind of creature as well. 1786, when he was blazing a trail across the Cumberland Gap, Boone claimed to have encountered a big, hairy, Bigfoot-like creature. He did not call it a Bigfoot, though. That term didn't come around until the 1950s. Boone referred to the creature as a Yahoo. Which at the time, the book Gulliver's Travels was popular. If you've ever read that, again, I'm an English teacher, I've taught this story a number of times in my class. If you've ever read that book, you know that about halfway through, Gulliver runs into a race of ape-like creatures called Yahoos. Well, that was Boone's favorite book. He would sit around campfires and tell stories of Gulliver's travels and read this book over and over and over again. Well, he told everybody after he ran into this creature, he said, I ran into one of those Yahoos that were written about in Jonathan Swift's Gulliver's Travels. Boone claimed to have shot and killed this creature on sight. Still to this day, the location where Daniel Boone allegedly killed that Yahoo, it still goes by the name Yahoo. It's in southern Kentucky. There's a place called Yahoo Falls. It's a popular hiking trail and picnic area. Hundreds of people a day go there, in the summer especially. Most of them aren't aware of the Bigfoot history of the site, though, but if you ask the Kentucky State Park Service, why do you call this Yahoo Falls? What a weird name. They'll tell you, well, that's because to Washington State, to Mount St. Helens, where another very famous account, a man named Fred Beck and a few of his friends were prospecting for gold on the eastern shoulder of Mount St. Helens. Now, you know, bear with me when I say that this is many, many decades before Mount St. Helens erupted in the 1980s. Very different looking place at the time. That wrought all sorts of devastation. But I will say this, though, after the eruption of Mount St. Helens, most of the area around it was destroyed utterly and totally. The Ape Canyon, where this story takes place, is still fully intact to this day. But Beck and his friends, his prospectors, had been prospecting for gold for a long time there in the shadow of Mount St. Helens. Well, one day, Fred Beck claimed that he was suffering from a toothache, which I guess at the time, if you were prospecting for gold out in the woods, there weren't a lot of dentists nearby. I guess there's still not a lot of dentists to this day if you're out in the middle of the woods. And Fred Beck was convinced, I got to go back to town, guys. I want to go see the dentist. Well, as you can imagine, the gold prospectors, they did this for a living, and they had actually kind of hit it rich. They'd been finding all sorts of gold deposits there. None of the men were too keen on leaving the valley, and so they left Fred to kind of, I guess, bellyache for a few days until finally he was able to convince one of the guys to go with him. Well, on their way out of Ape Canyon, again, rather famous, Beck and this gentleman he was going with, they claimed to have caught sight at the far end of this canyon, a big, hairy creature, standing on two legs, towering creature, much taller, much larger than either of them. Well, they went for their guns, and they were determined to bring this creature down, whatever it was. Shots were fired, and shots were missed, because, according to the tale, they did not bring this particular creature down. They were unclear as to whether they hit this creature or not, but they certainly fired at it several times, and they watched, again, on two legs, as this creature crept off into the woods. Quite a clip at that. Well, it shook them up. You know, instead of that toothache, I guess, starts it stops hurting quite as bad when you encounter something like this. You start to have a lot of other problems, perhaps. They wanted to race back to the gold prospectors, the other men they were leaving there, and let them know what they'd seen. Let them know what they fired at. So back in the other man, they raced back to the cabin that they built there in what is today referred to as Ape Canyon. Was not referred to as Ape Canyon at the time. There's a reason we call it Ape Canyon today, though, and it has to do with that creature. Well, they went back to the campsite and they told the other guys, they said, guys, you're not going to believe what we saw. It was a creature. It was big. It was hairy. We shot at it. The other guys said, well, did you hit it? They said, well, no. Well, we don't know. You know, it got away, so who knows? We all need to leave tomorrow. It's basically what they said. They said, we got to get out of here. Because if we didn't hit it, it's probably ticked off. And we need to get out of here ASAP. Well, reluctantly, the other miners agreed. The next morning, they were going to head out. They were going to head back to Kelso, Washington, where they called home. Well, later that night, as the miners were sleeping in this really rudimentary cabin, they claimed that these noises started occurring outside. Maybe not necessarily dissimilar to what I was talking about a minute ago from the Bigfoot calling contest and what Bowman and those guys had heard. Some loud guttural noises, some whoops perhaps, but these were coming from right outside of their cabin. Whatever they'd shot at apparently had come back and it had brought its friends, because it sounded like there were a whole horde of these creatures outside. In fact, they went to one of the, I guess, the slits in the window. They didn't really have glass windows of this cabin. They could just barely see out. And they say a whole host of these creatures outside. And again, these creatures were mad. These creatures were hurling rocks at the roof of the cabin. They were pounding on the sides of the cabin. They were pounding at the door. One of them, allegedly, according to the prospectors, even got a hand in through between, I guess, two of the logs of the cabin. Stuff was coming down the chimney. They said one of these creatures may have even been on the roof of this cabin, but it was a firefight that erupted that night. Back in the other prospectors, they opened fire, shooting through the ceiling, through the walls, through the door of this cabin. They destroyed the place, trying to fend off these, what they referred to as mountain devils, but what we refer to today is Bigfoot. I went on all night. Wasn't until the next morning that these creatures were sufficiently scared off, and the miners took off out shortly thereafter. This account, though, was not the last time that creatures like this have been reported near Mount St. Helens, but let's keep going a little further in time. Let's go to the 1950s now, because this was the.
How we doing?
Woo!
So, like they said, we are North Carolina investigators now, the paranormal. First question is, who believes in ghosts? Who's seen a ghost? All right. So we are based out of Winston-Salem. It's probably about an hour and a half away from here. My first ghost experience was probably about, I want to say like 7. You know, back whenever everybody didn't know what was going on. So I was at my grandma's house, and I think I was about 7. It's about 11 o'clock at night. You know, you hear noises and everything like that. So you're 7, you're supposed to be in bed, but you go check it out anyway. And what I see is a shadow that I'm thinking, okay, you know, somebody is up with me, about to catch me, I'm about to get in trouble. And nope, everybody was asleep. So we've gone from Trans-Allegheny all the way to Battleship. We're about to go back to Trans-Allegheny next year. We're not one of those, because you see a lot of ghost hunters on TV and stuff like that. And, some of it I believe, some of it I just think they're doing it for TV time. So if we don't catch something on investigation, we're still going to post it anyway, because you're never going to catch everything that you want to catch. And it's all about the experience to begin with. We're not one of those teams that's going to come out here and just fake something just to get a quick reaction. we was talking to John about doing Brushy Mountain. I think that'd be pretty cool to do because that's actually on my list. Add something.
Hey everybody, so my name is Chuck and this is Alex here. Me and him have been friends for probably 20 years or more. And when I first started, I was right around maybe 13 or 14. He had introduced me to the paranormal. He started taking me around local spots because we grew up in Statesville, North Carolina. He was taking me around some local spots in Statesville, North Carolina. And we've seen some amazing things. I mean, truly. Things that you cannot explain. We've probably been to a handful of sites, just locally in Statesville. I would say
we've done about probably on hand, probably close to 100 investigations. We're trying to find new places, so if anybody knows any places here in Marion, that would be great. And if you want to, we will let you join us because you showed us the location. It's only right for us to let you join us.
And just this like intense growling, just right behind me, just out of nowhere, just started growling at me, and to the point where he was running up, like charging up behind me, and it was running me out of the room. Yeah, it was intense. It wasn't in Statesville though. It was up towards the mountains of Virginia.
Has anybody ever had an experience they'd like to share? Or another question?
Yes, ma'am.
Any place we won't go? I've always had that thought, like, if you're not gonna go, you shouldn't be doing it. So, I think, but if I had to choose, that's a tough one. Because I'm one that's like, I'm the one in the group that's like, I like to push it, see how far I can push it before it starts to push back.
I would say we're pretty open to going pretty much anywhere. Does anybody else have any other questions? I'm sorry?
Funny experience.
Well, we have started doing these things called scare cams, where we intentionally try to hide when the other person's investigating, and we try to scare them.
Yeah, so we got a lot of videos of those. So yeah, because like you're at these places for like 12, 13 hours at a time, and it's like, okay, how do we? It's getting bored. So I'm getting bored, so I need to pass the time. I'm about to go mess with somebody. Yes, sir. Been in a situation where I know I shouldn't be there, but I'm there anyway. Oh yeah, so many times. So and I feel like the Tala one was that moment for me because like we've been there probably like 3 times. Like I said, we're going back in next year. But yeah, because this is one hallway that we haven't been on yet and stuff like that. So I was like, you know what? We've been everywhere else. Let's go here. And that's whenever I was like, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't have gone here because they do not want to be messed with.
Y'all been
St. Albans? Not yet. That is on the list. That is definitely on the list. Oh yeah. Anybody? Yes, ma'am. We do not get paid. We do not get paid. Everything we do comes out of our own pocket. But we, like I said, we do try to like help other groups that are like, start off and don't know what to do and everything like that. So we like to team up with them. Like if we catch something pretty cool, we'll actually let them use it in their video as well. So like I said, if we team up with a group and like say we caught something like fabulous, they didn't catch nothing, we will actually let them borrow some of our footage just so that they can have like something to post later. Anybody else?
What's your
Yes.
Do you ever worry about something following you back?
Something following us back? All the time. All the time. 9 times out of 10 it does. But it's only for like maybe a few days, and then it just goes away. Like I said, I've had so much stuff follow me. Back when I lived, back whenever I had to move back in with my mom, I had a little child spirit follow me from a previous investigation, which actually woke up my mom because she thought it was my sister. So yeah, I got the blunt of that. So that was fun. But yeah, if they follow you, basically, you know, you just tell them, hey, you're not where you're supposed to be. They'll go back.
Yes. Not yet. That is definitely on the list to do. Absolutely.
Like I said, we have a list of probably like
Yeah.
30 places we gotta go.
And we have been to the U.S. battleship, and that was fun as well.
That was a almost 13, 14-hour trip. Investigation, sorry.
Yes.
I'm actually just going to steal that. He's not even going back to college.
Probably so. Not coming up.
What should we get, Aaron?
I like that logo.
Yeah.